A quiet courtroom turns explosive when the police commissioner's wife struts in with absolute confidence, flashing a smug grin as she dismisses Judge Judy with a chilling claim. The laws don't apply to me. Cameras roll as raw arrogance slams into unshakable authority, every second cranking the tension higher. Sharp words cut deep, warnings are mocked, and power is challenged in real time. Judge Judy freezes, stunned, silent, unmoving. Then she looks up. What she does next flips the room upside down, and no one sees it coming. But before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching from? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The echo of her arrogance still vibrates through the courtroom air when Judge Judy finally lifts her eyes. The police commissioner's wife stands there, wearing the smug grin of someone who believes consequences are optional. The silence is tight, coiled, waiting to snap. The courtroom feels smaller now, as if the walls themselves are leaning in to witness what happens next. The commissioner's wife, immaculate hair, expensive jacket, confidence stitched into every gesture, shifts her weight like she is posing for a camera. In a way, she is. The red recording lights blink steadily from each corner, capturing every breath she releases into the room. She smirks again, a slow, deliberate curl of her lip, as if savoring the tension she created with her declaration. The laws don't apply to me. A line like that does not just hang in the air, it stains it. Judge Judy does not move at first. She just stares, not with anger, but with a calm so sharp it feels like the room might bleed from it. Her fingers rest lightly on the bench, still as stone, yet full of quiet power. The wife's grin widens, interpreting Judy's stillness as intimidation rather than calculation. The bailiff shifts slightly, a subtle repositioning that suggests he has already seen where arrogance leads in this courtroom. The plaintiff sits tensely beside her attorney, hands clasped tightly together, knuckles pale. She watches the commissioner's wife with a mix of disbelief and exhaustion, the kind worn by someone who has spent months battling a person who thinks rules are decorations. Judge Judy finally exhales, a measured breath that seems to reset the room's heartbeat. "Is that so?" she asks, her voice low, steady, almost gentle, the worst kind of calm. The wife tilts her head, that same plastic smile holding tight. "Obviously. Look at this place." She waves her hand flippantly around the courtroom as though dismissing a child's playroom. "You all take yourselves too seriously." A soft murmur ripples across the gallery. The cameras tilt forward. Hungry. Judy doesn't flinch. She leans back slightly, folding her hands like she's about to begin a delicate operation. "And you believe you're exempt from the law because—" The defendant shrugs, letting a small laugh escape. "I'm married to the police commissioner. You know that. Everyone knows that. It comes with certain—" Her eyes sparkle with mischief. "Privileges." There is something chilling about her confidence, not loud but smooth, practiced, like she has said versions of this line in countless places where she expected immediate surrender. Judy lets a long silence bloom between them, a silence that presses down on the defendant rather than lifting her. Finally, Judy leans forward, the first real movement, and immediately the atmosphere shifts. "Let me ask you a question," she says slowly, her tone now a scalpel. "Just one." The wife straightens, ready to win whatever game she thinks Judy is about to play. Judy's eyes lock onto hers, unblinking. "Do you believe your husband's power will protect you from me?" The defendant's smile flickers, just for a moment, before the cameras zoom in. Her laugh slices through the courtroom, sharp, careless, entirely out of place. It is the sound of someone who has never been told no. It is the sound of someone who expects never to hear it today. The commissioner's wife adjusts her designer sleeve as if preparing for a photo shoot rather than a legal hearing. Her confidence fills the space like perfume, heavy, intrusive, impossible to ignore. She leans casually against the podium, posture loose, eyes half-lidded, radiating a level of entitlement that makes even the gallery shift uncomfortably. Judge Judy watches her with the calm detachment of someone observing a storm through bulletproof glass. "So," the wife begins, crossing her arms as though the case is already beneath her. Shall I explain what actually happened? Or are we doing the dramatic thing where everyone pretends I'm in danger of losing? The plaintiff stiffens. She clutches her documents, the edges worn from weeks of rehearsing this moment. Her voice trembles slightly as she says, "I would like to be heard, Your Honor." The defendant waves a dismissive hand. "Oh, please." She always exaggerates. She's been trying to make this some moral crusade. It's a simple misunderstanding. Judy raises an eyebrow, a small gesture, but enough to shift the courtroom's temperature. "A misunderstanding?" Judy repeats, voice leveled with surgical precision. "Yes," the wife replies, stepping forward as though delivering a confident monologue. "You see, Your Honor, I was only helping. People know who I am. They expect me to resolve things, expedite situations. It's practically community service." The words drip arrogance, smooth and polished from being practiced over years of getting away with exactly that. The plaintiff's eyes fill with restrained hurt. "You threatened me," she says softly. "You used your husband's office to intimidate me into dropping my complaint." The defendant scoffs. "Threatened?" I reminded her that wasting police resources is irresponsible. Anyone in my position would have done the same. Judy leans back, lips pressed into a thin line. "And what position is that exactly?" The wife smiles, slow, confident, theatrical. "Influential, protected, connected. Pick your word." Even the cameras seem to pause, waiting for Judy's reaction. But Judy says nothing. She simply watches the woman talk, unraveling herself with every smug syllable. The silence is a mirror, and the defendant cannot help but admire her own reflection in it. She continues, "Honestly, this whole ordeal is embarrassing. For the court, I mean. Bringing me here, acting as if I'm—" Judy lifts a single finger. The woman stops mid-sentence, startled by the quiet authority in that gesture. "You believe," Judy says softly, "that status erases responsibility." The commissioner's wife tilts her head, smiling wider. "Status changes everything, Your Honor. You should know that." The room tightens. Even the air feels heavier, like it is waiting for someone to finally push back against her delusion. Judy's tone remains controlled. "And you interrupted the plaintiff multiple times because she lies," the wife snaps, "and I'm not going to stand here and let nobody smear my name." A murmur ripples through the gallery. The plaintiff drops her gaze, swallowing emotion she refuses to voice. The cameras zoom in as the defendant leans closer to Judy with a smirk. "You can't touch me," she whispers. This time, the entire room hears it. Her whisper was meant to slip under the radar, a private challenge tossed at the bench, but Judy lifts her chin as if the words were shouted through a megaphone. The courtroom stiffens, something invisible shifts. For a long moment, Judy simply stares at the commissioner's wife, the courtroom falling into a silence so tight it feels like a held breath. The woman straightens, preparing to ride the wave of attention she just created. She thinks she owns this room. She thinks she controls the narrative. Judy's gaze disagrees. She tilts her head half an inch, a tiny movement, but one that carries more weight than the defendant's entire performance. "Since you believe I can't touch you," Judy says calmly, "let us examine that confidence more carefully." The woman blinks, her smile wavering before settling back into position. "I'm simply stating facts, Your Honor." "Facts," Judy repeats, as though testing the flavor of the word. She reaches for a stack of papers, her fingers moving with precise, deliberate intention. "Let's begin with your earlier statement." She reads aloud a portion of the defendant's testimony, word for word, then places it against the plaintiff's version of events like two puzzle pieces that refuse to fit. Judy's tone never rises, but the contradictions flash in the air like lightning. The defendant laughs nervously. "Well, memory isn't perfect." "No," Judy interrupts gently but firmly, "but lying is." The courtroom reacts with a sharp inhale. Even the cameras tilt in, sensing a shift in power. The wife straightens her spine, adopting a more defensive posture. "I am not lying. I simply said what I needed to say to resolve the situation." "Honestly, you're making this far more dramatic than necessary." Judy's eyes narrow, not in anger, but in calculation. "So you believe the law becomes flexible when you find it inconvenient?" "I believe," the wife replies, "that I know how things work." Judy leans forward. The lights above seem to sharpen with her movement, casting a colder glow across the defendant's face. And yet, Judy says, you contradict yourself every time you open your mouth. The wife's jaw tightens. The plaintiff watches quietly, her hands trembling beneath the table, not from fear, but from relief. Someone is finally cutting through the facade. Judy gestures toward the bailiff. Bring me the file. A thick folder lands on the bench with a satisfying thud, echoing across the room. The defendant's shoulders tense, just slightly, just enough for the camera to catch. Judy opens it. The sound of paper shifting is surprisingly loud, like whispers from a truth that has waited too long. You told this court this document was irrelevant, Judy says, tapping a highlighted section. You insisted it had nothing to do with the incident. The defendant waves her hand. It doesn't. It's administrative nonsense. Is that so? Judy lifts a single page, her eyebrow arching. Because according to this, it has everything to do with it. The wife swallows, the first real sign of discomfort. Judy lifts her eyes, voice low but razor sharp. Explain to me why your signature appears on a document you swore you never touched. The smile drains from the defendant's face, and the room stops breathing. The folder hits Judy's bench with a weight that feels almost deliberate. Pages shift like restless ghosts, carrying a truth no one expected to see today. The defendant's eyes flicker, the first tiny fracture in her perfect confidence. Judy lifts the top page between two fingers, holding it up to the light as though examining a specimen. The commissioner's wife stands rigid at the podium, trying to control her breathing, pretending this moment is smaller than it feels. It is not small. It is seismic. This, Judy begins, tapping the paper, is the document you claimed was irrelevant. The woman laughs, a brittle, forced sound. Because it is irrelevant, bureaucratic padding, I sign dozens of things, I do not memorize them. Judy's eyes sharpen, the courtroom temperature dropping by degrees. You testified under oath that you had never seen this form before. Well, the woman hedges, shifting her weight. I meant I did not recall it in detail. Judy turns the page, revealing the signature line. Her voice lowers, soft but dangerous. And yet here it is. Your signature. Written in ink as confident as the smirk on your face. The defendant steps forward. Your Honor, that cannot possibly be. Do not. Judy holds up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. Do not insult this court by pretending someone forged your name on a form that directly benefited you. The woman's posture stiffens, shoulders rising. I am saying it is routine paperwork. My staff often handles these items for me. It must have been. No, Judy cuts in. Your staff may fill in details, but they do not sign your name. A murmur ripples through the gallery. The plaintiff looks up, shocked but vindicated. Her fingers clutching the edge of the table as though holding herself steady. Judy continues flipping through the pages, each turn punctuated by the trembling silence of a room, realizing the defendant's story is beginning to collapse. The cameras angle closer. The wife's composure thins like cracking glass. You claimed, Judy says, tapping another section, that you intervened in the plaintiff's situation out of civic concern. But this document shows you bypassed mandatory review and pushed through a request that does not legally fall under your authority. The defendant's eyes flare, a mixture of panic and indignation. I expedited a process to help someone. That is all. Judy tilts her head. Then why does your signature appear on a form specifically designed to override standard procedure? Her throat tightens visibly. She reaches for indignation like a shield. Because I was told to sign it. By whom? Judy asks calmly. A beat of silence, another, a third. The defendant's lips part, but no words appear. It is the first time arrogance fails her. Judy lowers the document, studying the woman as though seeing her for the first time. The lights overhead seem to harshen, casting long shadows across the defendant's face. You deny touching this document, Judy says, voice low. But this signature, she leans forward, eyes narrowing, is identical to the one you used on your intake form this morning. The courtroom goes still. Judy turns the folder around so the defendant must face her own handwriting. I have seen this signature before, Judy says, her tone chillingly precise. And it tells a story you will not like. She opens her mouth to deny the forgery, but nothing comes out. The cameras catch the moment her confidence falters, subtle but unmistakable. Arrogance has finally met something it cannot charm: evidence. For the first time since walking into the courtroom, the commissioner's wife does not know which expression to wear. Her lips part, then seal again, her jaw tightening as though trying to hold shape against an invisible pressure. She blinks twice, slow, stalling blinks, and the gallery leans forward, sensing the shift. Judge Judy watches the unraveling with unbroken calm. "Well," Judy asks softly, "you were about to explain." The wife inhales sharply, forcing steel into her voice. "Your Honor, I do not recall signing that document, and even if I did, it was clearly a misunderstanding." "My husband's staff handles things," Judy cuts in, voice precise. "Your husband's staff does not have access to this form, only you do, and the signature matches the one you made this morning when you checked into this courtroom. Identical strokes, identical pressure points, identical slant." The defendant swallows, her throat moving like a trapped pulse. "It is a coincidence," she says, but the words fall flat, lifeless, unconvincing. The plaintiff watches quietly, fingers curled tightly in her lap, the emotion on her face shifting from fear to vindication. It is not triumph. It is relief. Heavy, overdue relief. Judy places the document flat on the bench. "Mrs. Harrington, forging a signature on a government override form is not a coincidence. It is intent. Intent to bypass procedure. Intent to manipulate authority." The woman's veneer begins to peel. "You are twisting this." "No," Judy says. "You twisted it the moment you decided protocol was optional for you." A flush creeps up the defendant's neck. Panic rises, but she disguises it poorly, attempting to stitch her composure back together with shaky arrogance. "My husband will—" "Your husband is not on trial," Judy interrupts with a raised hand. "You are." The room goes still. The defendant's shoulders drop a fraction, the smallest collapse, but the cameras catch everything. She turns her eyes toward the gallery, scanning for support that does not exist. Judy continues, her tone steady. "You used his title to intimidate the plaintiff. You used his office to push through a personal agenda. You signed a form that you claimed you had never seen." The wife grips the podium until her knuckles pale. "I was trying to help someone," she whispers. "Who?" Judy asks. She freezes. Silence stretches, long and telling. "You see?" Judy says softly. "When arrogance breaks, the truth usually slips out with it." The defendant looks down, her confidence no longer shining. It flickers like a dying bulb. For the first time, she seems small, not powerful, not protected, just exposed. Judy leans forward, elbows on the bench, voice lowering into something that feels dangerously close to empathy, but not quite. "Tell me something, Mrs. Harrington. Does your husband know what you did with his authority?" The defendant stiffens, eyes snapping upward, panic flooding her composure. Her voice cracks as she whispers, "What did you say?" Judy repeats it, slower this time. "Does he know?" The question hits harder than any evidence, and she cannot hide from it. For the first time, fear flickers behind her eyes, faint but visible. She tries to blink it away, but fear has a way of staining the air. And in this courtroom, fear speaks louder than arrogance ever could. The commissioner's wife grips the podium like it is the last stable object in a trembling world. The question Judy asked, "Does he know what you did?" still hangs above her like a dropped chandelier, moments from shattering. She inhales through her nose, sharp and shaky. "My husband trusts me," she says, voice trembling beneath its practiced confidence. "He always has." Judy doesn't blink. Trust is fragile. Misuse of power breaks it quickly. The woman's eyes dart around the room, searching desperately for a sympathetic face, a lifeline, someone who might validate her story. But everyone watches in stillness. The plaintiff, the bailiff, the gallery, even the cameras. No one steps forward, no one blinks. She straightens her back, raising her chin like a shield. "You don't understand, Your Honor. People expect me to act. My husband's position puts me in situations where—" Judy cuts her off with a soft, lethal precision. "Your husband's position is not yours. And authority is not a family accessory." The woman recoils as if struck. The plaintiff finally lifts her voice, quiet but steady. "She came to my workplace, Your Honor. She stood in front of customers and told them I was being watched. She said her husband would take care of me if I didn't cooperate. The defendant scoffs instantly. Cooperate? I asked you to correct an error. You threatened to end my job, the plaintiff says, emotion cracking through restraint. You said, people like me don't last long if the commissioner's wife is unhappy. A ripple of disgust murmurs through the room. Judy raises a hand, restoring silence. Mrs. Harrington, intimidation is not community service. It is abuse of perceived authority, and it is illegal. The wife's breath quickens. Her facade begins to slip, not through tears, but through frantic explanations. I never meant, I only wanted, you're twisting everything. You're trying to make me look like some kind of monster. No, Judy says calmly, you're doing that on your own. The woman slams her palm on the podium. I was helping. I've always helped. I do what needs to be done because I know how things work. Judy leans forward, voice dropping to a razor-thin whisper. And you believe the law bends for you because of who you married? The defendant freezes. The cameras zoom in. Every breath in the room holds. She falters. I didn't mean. Judy straightens, her tone turning cold and judicial. Power is not protection, and authority is not a shield you get to hide behind when things turn inconvenient. The woman swallows hard, her confidence now a hollow shell around rising panic. Judy continues, if you truly believe you are untouchable, then today will be very educational. Her voice slices the silence. Judy pushes the file aside and says, we are going to test your belief right now. The defendant stiffens, bracing herself but not ready for what is coming. She senses it before anyone says a word. The shift. The room no longer bends toward her, it braces against her. For the first time, she is not leading the moment, she is losing it. The commissioner's wife stands frozen, her breath hovering too close to panic. The courtroom feels different now, as if someone quietly rotated the axis of power while she was busy defending her own myth. Even the posture of the bailiff has changed, less watchful, more certain. The plaintiff sits straighter, her shoulders no longer weighed down by fear. Judy notices all of it. What we will do now, Judy says, adjusting her glasses with deliberate calm, is examine the pattern behind your choices. The defendant's head snaps up. Pattern? There is no pattern. You're inventing one because you've already decided. Patterns, Judy interrupts, are rarely invented. They reveal themselves. She gestures for the clerk to bring a supplementary file. The papers are placed gently on the bench, but the sound echoes like a warning shot in the quiet room. The defendant shifts, her jaw tightening. Cameras zoom in, catching the rigid lines forming at her mouth. Judy begins reading from a prior complaint, not part of today's main case, but relevant. Another citizen who reported an almost identical interaction. Intimidation, name-dropping, entitlement packaged as community service. The wife scoffs, but her voice is thinner now. These people exaggerate. They misunderstand who I am. Judy leans forward slightly. Then explain who you are. The wife hesitates, an expensive hesitation, glossy and brittle. I uphold standards. People expect me to solve things quickly. They know my husband. They know our responsibility. It's a public role. It is not, Judy cuts in, a license to bully. A soft gasp slips from someone in the gallery. The defendant flinches, tracing invisible patterns on the podium with her fingertip, a nervous tell she cannot hide. The plaintiff, voice gentle but resolute, speaks. She said I could lose my job if I didn't cooperate, Your Honor. She said she'd take care of the problem personally. The wife's head jerks toward her. I never said. You did, the plaintiff replies quietly. And you enjoyed it. The gallery murmurs, a wave of disbelief and recognition, because entitlement always sounds the same, and everyone here has heard versions of it before. Judy raises a hand and silence falls instantly. Mrs. Harrington, she says, this consistent behavior suggests your confidence is not situational. It's habitual. You've treated authority as a personal commodity. It's not like that, the wife snaps, her voice lifting with desperation she cannot disguise. You're twisting everything. People record me out of context. Judy tilts her head. Then perhaps we should let the context speak for itself. The room chills. The defendant's eyes widen. What does that mean? Judy nods at the bailiff. Lights dim slightly as a screen lowers. A video file loads, time-stamped, clear, undeniable. Judy says, roll the footage. The screen brightens, and the defendant's own face fills it, smirking, confident, and unfiltered, a version of her that tells the truth more loudly than she ever intended. The courtroom lights dim, and the screen blooms to life with a cold, bluish glow. Her face appears, confident, smirking, unguarded, and in that first frozen frame, the wife knows. She cannot outrun this version of herself. The room is silent except for the soft hum of the monitor. Even the cameras seem to lean closer as the first seconds of the footage begin to play. The commissioner's wife shifts her posture, crossing her arms in a way that tries, and fails, to suggest control. The video shows her standing inside a small retail store, immaculate and poised, the same smug tilt of the head she carried into this courtroom. She is mid-sentence, voice crisp, dripping with self-importance. "If you do not fix this immediately," the woman in the video says, "I will have my husband shut this place down. Do you understand?" The commissioner does not tolerate incompetence. A sharp gasp escapes from someone in the gallery. On screen, she leans closer to a trembling store clerk. "People like you forget your place, I remind them." The plaintiff in the courtroom closes her eyes. She has heard that tone before. Judy watches without blinking, her expression unreadable. The defendant shifts again, then again, as if trying to find a position where the truth feels less suffocating. The footage continues. The wife's voice grows sharper, more venomous, her entitlement blooming in full, ugly clarity. "I can make one call," the recording shows her saying, tapping her phone like a weapon. "One, and everything in your life changes. Is that what you want?" The real woman in the courtroom flinches, a small, involuntary movement she cannot control. It is the first time she appears to be seeing herself from the outside. Her whispered defense slips out, thin and trembling. That is not how it happened." But the video keeps playing. It captures her smirk, her threat, her absolute belief in untouchability. By the time the clip ends, the room feels colder, heavier. The screen fades to black, but the echo of her voice lingers like smoke. Judy allows the silence to stretch. Silence is her scalpel, and today it cuts deep. The defendant tries to speak, but her voice cracks on the first syllable. That's out of context," she stammers. "People provoke me. They know who I am. They try to take advantage." "No," Judy says quietly, and the softness is devastating. "They know who your husband is. You are the one taking advantage." The wife's eyes dart desperately around the courtroom, searching for escape, for justification, for anything that will make this moment smaller. Nothing appears. Judy taps a finger once on the bench, a gesture with the weight of a gavel strike. "Mrs. Harrington, this footage shows a pattern of intimidation, entitlement, and abuse of perceived authority. It contradicts everything you testified today." The defendant's throat tightens visibly. "Someone set me up," she sputters. "Someone is trying to destroy my family. Who gave you that video? Who—" Judy studies her the way a surgeon studies a heartbeat before making the final incision. "That footage," Judy says slowly, "was not submitted by the plaintiff." The defendant's breathing stops. Judy leans in. "It came from someone you trust." She whispers one word. No, not a denial, a plea. Because somewhere inside, she already knows who sent the video. The defendant's composure fractures like thin ice under a heavy step. Her eyes dart wildly across the courtroom, searching for a face that might rescue her, searching for a lie that might hold. But the moment stretches too long, too quiet, too heavy. Judge Judy folds her hands, posture steady, gaze firm. "I will repeat myself so there is no misunderstanding. The footage was submitted by someone close to you." The commissioner's wife swallows hard. Her breath shudders as it leaves her chest. "You are wrong," she says, but even she does not believe the sound of her own voice. Judy takes a slow breath, letting silence sculpt the moment. "Mrs. Harrington, your husband has provided a written statement." The words hit harder than the video. The defendant staggers back a half step, gripping the podium as though the floor tilted beneath her. Her voice rises in a desperate pitch. "No. No, absolutely not. He would never humiliate me like this." The gallery sits in stunned stillness. Even the cameras seem to pause, their lenses capturing the slow-motion collapse of a woman who built her identity on borrowed power. Judy nods toward the bailiff, who retrieves a sealed envelope and hands it to the bench. The sound of the paper sliding across the wood is soft, but devastating. The defendant's eyes lock onto it with a mixture of terror and disbelief. "That is his handwriting, Mrs. Harrington," Judy says calmly. "His words, his account, his request." "No." The defendant presses a trembling palm to her forehead. "He's protecting me. He always protects me. He would never go behind my back." Judy tilts her head slightly. "Sometimes protection looks like accountability." The woman's breathing turns uneven. Her eyes shine with the beginning sting of betrayal, not the kind caused by enemies, but by the one person she believed would always stand between her and consequence. The plaintiff watches quietly, her expression softening not out of sympathy but understanding. There is no satisfaction in watching another human being crumble, only truth, arriving late and heavy. The defendant grips the podium harder. "This is a mistake. Someone forced him. Someone manipulated him." Judy shakes her head. "No one manipulated him. He sent this voluntarily and anonymously. He wanted the court to have the truth." The room tightens around her. She whispers, "Why would he do this to me?" Judy's voice is low, almost gentle. "Perhaps he realized the damage your behavior was causing, to others, to him, to you." The defendant's face drains of color. Her world, built on entitlement, protected by status, sustained by illusion, begins to collapse from the inside. Her fingers slip slightly on the podium. Her voice breaks. "I need to speak to him, right now." Judy leans forward, eyes steady. "You will not need to call him." Judy taps the envelope once. He has already spoken. The defendant's breath catches and waits just beyond that sealed paper. The bailiff sets the sealed envelope on Judy's bench with the care of someone placing down a loaded weapon. The defendant stares at it like it might burst open and swallow her whole. In a way, it already has. Judge Judy breaks the seal with a deliberate slowness, each tier of paper sounding like a verdict. The commissioner's wife stands frozen, shoulders trembling ever so slightly. It is the posture of someone bracing for impact, not from a blow, but from truth. Judy unfolds the letter. The courtroom holds its breath. "Mrs. Harrington," Judy begins, "your husband submitted this voluntarily. His intention, as stated here, is to provide clarity about your behavior." The defendant's face crumples for a fraction of a second before she forces it back into something resembling composure. He wouldn't betray me like this. He wouldn't embarrass me publicly." Judy reads aloud. "Over the past several years, my wife has involved herself in matters tied to my office without my consent. I have repeatedly warned her that using my position as leverage harms not only the people she targets, but the integrity of the department." A soft exhale ripples through the gallery. The defendant flinches. Judy continues. "I have attempted to address this privately, but the behavior has escalated. I believe the court needs to intervene before further harm is done." The wife's breath breaks on a sob she tries to smother. "No, he doesn't mean that. Someone wrote that for him. He would never use the word escalated. He would never." Judy stops reading and looks directly at her. "This is his handwriting, his signature, his words." The defendant's shoulders curl inward, her confidence collapsing into something raw and unguarded. She grips the podium, knuckles whitening like brittle stone. Her voice lowers to a desperate rasp. "He promised me. He always promised he would protect me." Judy softens, but only slightly. Protection is not the same as enabling, and sometimes choosing truth is an act of protection. The woman opens her mouth, but no words come. Her eyes shimmer with betrayal, confusion, and something deeper, a realization she cannot yet name. The plaintiff watches with quiet empathy, not pity, not triumph, something gentler, rooted in recognition. Because everyone, at some point, learns what it feels like when an illusion finally collapses. Judy returns her gaze to the letter. "I hope this hearing will help my wife understand the gravity of her actions. I can no longer shield her from the consequences. I am asking the court to intervene for her sake as well as the public's." The final sentence lands like a gavel. The wife shakes her head violently. "He wouldn't say that. He wouldn't. He loves me." Judy sets the letter down with a soft final tap. Love does not erase responsibility. It calls you to it. The defendant's breathing grows shallow, her world shrinking into a single devastating truth. She is no longer protected by the badge she hid behind. Judy leans in, voice lowered. If this is how your husband sees your behavior, tell me, Mrs. Harrington, how do you see it? Her silence is louder than denial. Silence answers Judy's question at first, but it isn't empty. It trembles. Something old, buried, and aching moves beneath it. The commissioner's wife stands in the harsh courtroom lighting, shoulders hunched in a way that no one has seen from her before. The arrogance that once wrapped her like armor now appears fractured, slipping through the cracks of her shaking breath. Judy waits. She knows silence can be more revealing than any testimony. Finally, the woman speaks, not with confidence, not with defiance, but with a quiet, trembling honesty she seems unfamiliar with. I never meant to hurt anyone, she whispers, her eyes fixed on a spot on the floor. I didn't want to feel invisible. The plaintiff's brow furrows softly. The gallery shifts, not with judgment, but with unexpected curiosity. Judy leans in slightly, voice calm but razor-focused. Invisible to whom? The woman swallows hard. Her hands twist around each other. To him, to everyone, to myself, I guess. A broken laugh escapes her throat. You have no idea what it's like being married to a man everyone admires, while you stand next to him like a prop. The courtroom falls utterly still. She continues, words spilling faster now, as though she's afraid they'll turn to dust if she doesn't release them all at once. He solves crises. He makes speeches. People hang on his every word. And when we go home, her voice cracks. I'm just a shadow following behind him. No one asks what I want. No one listens. No one sees me. Soft murmurs ripple through the gallery, not mocking, understanding. Judy's eyes remain steady, assessing the emotional truth behind the confession. So you crafted your own form of visibility, she says quietly. The woman nods, tears finally breaking free. When people reacted to me, even out of fear, I felt powerful, relevant. Like I mattered, she wipes her cheek with the back of her trembling hand. I thought, if I carried his authority, people would look at me the way they look at him. And did they? Judy asks. The woman closes her eyes. No, they looked through me. Or worse, they looked afraid, and I mistook that for respect. A heavy silence blankets the courtroom. Judy speaks gently but firmly. Fear is not respect. Power is not identity. And intimidation is not influence. The defendant nods, her head bowed. For the first time, she is not performing. She is simply standing in the emotional wreckage of her own choices. The plaintiff, moved despite everything, murmurs, "You could have just spoken to me. You didn't need to do all this." The woman looks at her with red, swollen eyes. I know. I didn't know how to be honest without being afraid it wouldn't be enough. Judy studies her, seeing not the entitled persona that entered the courtroom, but the frightened woman behind it, cracked open by consequences she never expected. Judy leans back slowly. You believe you were invisible, she says, voice softening into something sharper than pity. But you were not the only one. Her words hang like a key in a locked doorway and waits on the other side. The realization hits her slowly, not like a blow, but like a floor giving way beneath her. Her supposed power wasn't stolen today. It never existed. The commissioner's wife stands frozen, her breath shallow, her shoulders curled inward as Judy's words echo through the courtroom. You were not the only one who felt invisible. For a moment, she doesn't understand. Then she sees the plaintiff, really sees her, and the truth lands with devastating clarity. Judy turns to the plaintiff. Would you repeat what you told this court? The part that was not included in your formal complaint? The plaintiff nods, voice trembling but steady. I filed a complaint about her intimidation months before this case. A quiet complaint, off the record. I didn't want it to escalate. I just wanted the behavior to stop. The defendant's eyes widen, her voice cracks. You already complained about me? The plaintiff nods again. And your husband reached out privately. He begged the department not to escalate it. He promised it was under control. He said he'd talk to you, and I believed him. The wife stumbles back a half step, as if struck from behind. Judy's voice is gentle, but the gentleness cuts more deeply than reprimand. Your husband wasn't empowering you. He was covering for you, shielding you from consequences you were already creating. A sob escapes the woman's throat, raw and broken. He knew? He knew what I was doing and he didn't tell me? He didn't stop me? Judy shakes her head slowly. He tried. But warnings only work if you listen, and you were too busy building a world where you mattered more than the truth. The defendant drops her gaze. Tears slip quietly down her cheek, tracing lines through a facade she can no longer uphold. I thought he believed in me. He believed in the person you could be, Judy replies, not the one you became. The gallery remains silent, respectful. Even the cameras seem to hold their breath, capturing the moment a woman confronts the reality she spent years refusing to see. The wife's fingers tremble as they grip the podium. If he knew I was hurting people, why didn't he make me stop? Judy's answer is soft. Because he loved you. And sometimes love shields when it should intervene. Sometimes love hopes people will change without being pushed. The plaintiff speaks again, not with accusation, but with surprising compassion. We weren't invisible to you. We were obstacles, and you didn't care who you stepped on to feel seen. The words land with devastating precision. The wife collapses into herself, shoulders shaking. I didn't mean to become this, she whispers. No one does, Judy says, but this is the moment you decide whether you stay this version of yourself or rebuild the one you lost. The defendant looks up, eyes swollen, voice trembling. What happens now? Judy folds her hands, gaze steady. Now, she says, we talk about consequence, the kind that rebuilds, not destroys. Her tone signals the shift. The collapse is complete. What comes next will define who the woman becomes without her illusions. No one moves. The gallery sits frozen, not from fear, but from the gravity of what has just been unearthed. Even the air feels cautious, as if afraid to shift before Judy does. The commissioner's wife stands trembling, her hands curled on the podium like she's holding on to the last solid object in a collapsing world. Tear tracks stain her cheeks, but she doesn't wipe them. She is too stunned, too hollowed out by truth, too stripped of the persona she carried into this courtroom. Judge Judy lifts the file in front of her, adjusting her glasses with the quiet authority of someone preparing to reestablish balance. The papers rustle, a soft sound, but in this courtroom, it lands like thunder. Mrs. Harrington, Judy begins, voice calm but firm. This case is no longer about intimidation alone. It is about the long-term impact of your choices on strangers, on the public, on your husband, and on yourself. The defendant closes her eyes, her chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. The earlier arrogance is gone. In its place stands a woman confronting the emotional debris of her own decisions. The plaintiff sits straighter, her shoulders no longer slump beneath the weight of fear. Justice, long overdue and long delayed, now sits close enough for her to feel its presence. Judy continues, for years, you operated under the illusion that authority was a cloak you could wear as you pleased, that your proximity to power granted you immunity. But authority without responsibility is chaos, and you unleashed that chaos on people who had no way to defend themselves. The gallery nods subtly. They feel the truth in her words, not loud, not sensational, but steady and unshakable. The defendant whispers, voice breaking, I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know I was spiraling. Judy softens only enough to acknowledge the human in front of her. Most people don't, but harm is harm, even when done blindly. And consequences, she says, tapping the bench with a single finger, are not punishments. They are the compass that guides you back to yourself. The plaintiff watches her former tormentor with eyes full of something unexpected, not bitterness, but solemn understanding. She speaks quietly. I didn't want you ruined. I just wanted you to see what you were doing. The defendant looks at her, eyes red and swollen. She nods, a small, broken acknowledgement that she finally, painfully understands. Judy clears her throat, guiding the focus back to the bench. Before I deliver my ruling, this court must consider the broader issue, accountability. Not humiliation, not revenge, responsibility. This is the moment where you either step into it or run from it once again. The courtroom stills even further. It is the kind of silence that happens only at hinge points, the moments where a life can turn. Judy folds her hands. There's one more thing she needs to understand before this ruling is given. The defendant's breath catches. The plaintiff straightens. The gallery leans in. Judy's voice lowers, not harsh, but heavy with purpose. Mrs. Harrington, you must learn what your power was never meant to be. The lesson, the one she has avoided for years, is coming next. Judy doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. Her silence alone pulls every gaze toward her. Even the cameras seem to lean closer, waiting for the moment that will redefine the woman trembling at the podium. Judge Judy sits with a posture carved from conviction, steady, grounded, unshakable. The commissioner's wife, by contrast, stands small in the wash of courtroom light, her shoulders caving inward as the weight of the past hours settles onto her. The arrogance that once armor-plated her presence has dissolved into something fragile, frightened, painfully human. Mrs. Harrington, Judy begins, her voice calm but edged with unmistakable gravity. You built your identity around an illusion, one that revolved entirely around borrowed power. The woman flinches, not because the words are harsh, but because they are true. Judy continues, authority is not something you inherit through marriage. Influence is not something you wield because of proximity. Respect is not something you purchase with intimidation. She pauses. Power is only meaningful when it is anchored to responsibility. The defendant's eyes well again, tears forming but not yet falling. I thought, using that power made me important, she whispers, like I mattered. Judy softens, just enough to deliver the truth with precision rather than cruelty. Importance isn't claimed by force. It's earned through integrity, through humility, through the way you treat people who cannot give you anything in return. The plaintiff lowers her gaze, absorbing the moment with a quiet solemnity. The gallery remains utterly still, as though the entire room has become a classroom, and Judy, the reluctant, necessary teacher. You believed fear was respect, Judy says. You believed silence was admiration. You believed compliance meant you were seen. She leans slightly forward. But fear is not respect. Silence is not admiration, and compliance is not visibility. The wife covers her trembling mouth with a shaking hand. I didn't know how else to be someone. You become someone, Judy says gently, by choosing honesty over image, responsibility over entitlement, and humility over performance. The woman's shoulders shake, not with defiance, with understanding. Judy's voice softens even more, layers of empathy threading beneath the steel. Your husband tried to protect your public image, but he could not protect you from the consequences of the image you built for yourself. The defendant swallows a jagged breath. I didn't want to disappear. You didn't disappear, Judy replies. You overshadowed yourself. A hush falls so complete it feels like a blanket dropped over the room. Judy then lifts her gavel slightly, not to strike, but to reclaim the room's rhythm. Before I deliver my ruling, there is one final truth you must accept. True authority does not come from who stands beside you. It comes from who you choose to be when no one is watching. The defendant's tears spill freely now. The plaintiff watches her with quiet humanity, not forgiveness, not revenge, just recognition. Judy lowers her gavel, poised. Mrs. Harrington, Judy says, voice steady as stone. It is time for your verdict. The entire courtroom inhales as one, suspended between consequence and hope. Before the verdict lands, tell me, do you believe people truly change, or do they simply learn to hide their flaws better? The gavel rises, not as a weapon, not as a threat, but as a moment suspended between two futures. The entire courtroom goes silent. This is the breath before life changes. Judge Judy's gaze sweeps across the courtroom, taking in every face, the plaintiff's quiet anticipation, the gallery's held breath, and finally, the wife who stands trembling at the podium. There is no arrogance left in her posture, no performance, no illusion, only a woman confronting the cost of her choices. Mrs. Harrington, Judy begins, her voice steady, this court has heard your testimony, reviewed the evidence, and weighed the impact of your actions. What we have witnessed today is not a misunderstanding. It is a pattern. The defendant flinches but does not look away. There is strength in that, small, fragile, but real. Judy continues, you used perceived authority to intimidate citizens. You forged documentation to bypass proper procedure. You misrepresented your husband's position to get your way. These are not accidents. They are deliberate actions rooted in entitlement and insecurity. The woman's throat tightens. Tears gather at her lashes. But, Judy adds softly, they do not define who you must become. A flicker of hope moves across the defendant's expression, faint, uncertain, but present. This court orders the following, Judy announces, shifting into the ruling with clarity and precision. Restitution paid to the plaintiff for emotional and professional harm. Mandatory community accountability training. A written acknowledgement submitted to the department addressing your misuse of influence. The woman nods, small, trembling, acceptance, not argument. And, Judy continues, this case will be referred to internal review regarding your conduct. That is not to punish you, but to ensure boundaries are created where they were previously ignored. A ripple travels through the gallery. The defendant closes her eyes as the weight settles, heavy but grounding. The plaintiff exhales, relief soft but unmistakable. She looks at the defendant, not with victory, but with quiet humanity. Thank you, Your Honor, she whispers. Judy lifts her chin. The plaintiff's courage in speaking up is why this case could be heard fairly. No one should fear the consequences of telling the truth. The commissioner's wife meets Judy's gaze then, fully, vulnerably. I understand, she says, voice breaking. I didn't before, but I do now. Judy nods once. Good. Because accountability is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a better one, if you let it be. The room settles into stillness, a different stillness than before, not fear, not anticipation, something closer to balance. Judy lifts the gavel. This court is adjourned. The strike echoes, firm, final, but not cruel. A sound that does not destroy, but resets. The defendant stands a moment longer, breathing through the shock, through the grief, through the strange feeling of being seen at last, not as a shadow of power, but as a person. The plaintiff gathers her things quietly, casting one last glance toward her former intimidator. And as the courtroom empties, Judy's final words hover in the air like a closing line etched into stone. Power is borrowed, consequence is earned, but humility can rebuild almost anything.